My name is Carrie Podlina, and I'm going to interview my 75-year-old grandfather, George Reamer, about his experiences during the 1951 Kansas flood. Friday, July 13th, 1951 is called Black Friday. The Kansas River crested at 36 feet, which was 15 feet above flood stage. The floodwaters left $34 million of damage in Topeka. Up to 15 feet of water struck 6,950 Topeka homes and 300 businesses. 24,000 Topekans were evacuated from their homes, and 115 communities in Kansas sustained some flood damage, including Silver Lake, where my grandfather grew up. His parents, Harry and Alice Reamer, were truck farmers in the Silver Lake area, and my grandpa continued to carry that on even after they passed away. Here are some pictures from the 1951 flood. So I'm going to be talking to my grandfather about his experiences growing up on the farm and what he remembers about the 51 flood and how it affected their farm.
I'm George Reamer. My granddaughter wants an interview about times in the 51 flood. I, at the time, was a 19-year-old boy living at home with my parents. We lived approximately a quarter of a mile from the river. And it started raining. My dad was a truck farmer. Of course, we raised nothing that year. It washed away in July. But most of the time, he raised watermelon, sweet corn, sweet potatoes, Irish potatoes, like that. Sold them at farmer's market in Topeka, where everybody went on Saturday mornings about 4 o'clock in the morning and sold their produce. But then it started raining, and the flood was imminent. They were sure it was going to come because it just wouldn't quit raining out in western Kansas, central Kansas. So for a couple of weeks while we took turns, different people, you'd walk a certain stretch of the dike along the river looking for holes, daytime and nighttime. Carried a lantern and you'd walk up a quarter of a mile and meet with somebody from the other way and report everything was all right in your district. And then the last night we lived at home while they had come by and told us they had another big rain out west, and the river was not going to be able to hold all the water. So I took my mother and my two sisters to the neighbor's house 3 or 4 miles north on the hill, and Dad said he was going to stay there. So it was dark at that time, and we went up to the Dillon family. My mother and the two sisters stayed there, and Mr. Dillon, Art Dillon, he said, "No, George, we're going to go back and get your dad." So we got in the car and we come back down, and we convinced Dad to go and spend the night, and then we'd come back first thing the next morning. Well, the next morning it hadn't flooded yet. We did come back to the house, and we did come down to the river dike, and about 8 o'clock, why, it started running over the top of the levees, and they said, "Well, we just can't hold it anymore. Everybody go home and move out, whatever you want to do. Don't waste a lot of time." This was 8:15 in the morning, and they did hold till about 3 that afternoon, and then it washed the levee out and the water just went everywhere. Of course, there was a few people that thought they was going to make it. They always had. Never had a flood like that before. I even remember my dad saying, "Well, I've got nothing to worry about." I said the biggest flood we've had was 1903. And he said it never got in the house in 1903. And apparently Sam Holmes, who was about my dad's age, lived down the road a mile, he decided he wasn't going to go out, so he got up on the roof of his house and tied the boat to it, and he was going to wait it out. Well, Sam waited until the house next door floated away, and Sam got in the boat and he left. But that's just one of many people probably up and down the valley that had the same experiences. Ours was not unique because it flooded all the way from Manhattan to Kansas City, and the water, although not in this house wasn't here, but water got 4 to 5 feet deep in all the houses. And I remember the night before, Dad had some pigs, and he said, "Let's put them up in the hay mow of the barn, so if it does get 2 or 3 feet deep out there and by the barn, why, the pigs will be up." So we carried the pigs up in the hay mow of the barn. Of course, when we come back, which It was a week before we could get back down because of the water before it went clear down. Maybe 10 days, I don't remember exactly. But we'd come back anyway. You couldn't drive in. The roads were washed out, but we walked down. And the pigs weren't there. Their tracks were up there in the mud, but they had stayed through the water, but afterwards, why, they were gone someplace. And then, of course, everybody had to redo their houses and put a lot of sand on all the ground around here, washed out of the river. And it helped a lot of crops. Put some extra topsoil on top of them, and 1952 probably had the best crops that we ever had.
Thank you, Grandpa. I love you.